Hello and greetings to everyone. We are to correct the following exercises for application on taxes. Question 1. Calculate the annual salary of a woman who has tax-free allowance of 12,350 francs CFA and who pays 14,040 francs CFA as tax, given that her taxation rate is 30%. Its solution. Let's calculate the annual salary of a woman who has a tax-free allowance of 12,350 francs CFA. The tax amount of the woman is equal to 14,040 francs CFA. He has a taxation rate of 30%. We need to start by calculating the amount taxed. For us to calculate the amount taxed, we are going to make use of this formula. Tax amount is equal to tax rate times the amount being taxed. We have the tax amount as 14,040 francs CFA is equal to the tax rate 30%, expressing 30% as a fraction. We have 30 over 100 times the amount being taxed all over 1. Simplifying 30 over 100, this will give us 3 over 10. For us to get the amount being taxed, it will simply be equal to, we are going to multiply the tax amount 14,040 francs CFA by 10. Then we divide the result by 3. This will simply be equal to 14,040 francs CFA times 10 gives us 140,400 francs CFA divided by 3 gives us 46,800 francs CFA. This is the amount being taxed. Now, for us to get the annual salary of the woman, the annual salary of woman, it will simply be equal to, we are going to add the amount being tasked, which is 46,800 francs CFA, and the tax-free allowance, which is 12,350 francs CFA. Adding 46,800 francs CFA and 12,350 francs CFA gives us 59,150. This will be equal to 59,150 francs CFA. We conclude, therefore, the annual salary of the woman is 59,150 francs CFA. We underline the answer. We go now to question 2. Question 2. A woman invests $268,800 in a bank which pays 8% per annum interest. If she has to pay income tax of 35% on her invested income, how much tax does she pay each year? Let's answer the first part of the question. First, we have been told that the invested amount by the woman is $268,800 in a bank which pays 8% per annum interest. We have the bank pays 8% per annum interest. First part of the question, question A, is asking us if she has to pay income tax of 35%. We have the rate of income tax is equal to 35% on her invested income. How much tax does she pay each year? To calculate the tax paid each year by the woman is simply equal to 35% of her invested income. 35% of the invested amount. And this will simply be equal to 35 over 100 times the invested amount, which is $268,800 over 1. This will be equal to, performing all the necessary simplifications, 100 will go here, 2,688 times 100 divided by 100 gives us 1. We'll simply be left with 35 times $2,688, which gives us $94,080. This is the amount paid each year by the woman as tax. You underline the answer. We move now to the second part of the question, B. How much income does she receive after taxation? How much income does she receive after taxation? Okay, the income she receives after taxation will simply be equal to, first thing, we are going to start by calculating her interest, the interest she makes, interest, which is equal to 8% of the invested amount, which is $268,800. This will be equal to 8/100 times $268,800/1. Performing the simplifications, 100 will go here. 2,688 times 100 divided by 100 gives 1. We'll be left with 8 times 2,688, which gives us $21,504. This is the annual interest the woman makes. Now, for us to find how much does she receive as after taxation, amount received after taxation will simply be equal to, we are going to subtract the amount paid as tax from the invested amount. That is, we are going to take $268,800 minus the amount paid as tax annually, which is $94,080, plus we are going to add the interest she makes annually, which is $21,504. This will simply be equal to $268,800 minus $94,080. It gives us $174,720 plus the interest, the annual interest she makes, which is $21,504. This will simply be equal to $174,720 plus $21,504. It gives us $196,224 This is the amount received after taxation by the woman. You find the answer. We move now to question C. Question C is asking us what percentage is this of the amount she has invested? That means what percentage does she receive from the amount invested? Percentage received by woman simply equal to, we are going to divide the amount she receives, $196,224 by the amount invested, which is $268,800 times 100% over 1. Dividing $196,224 by 268,800, it gives us 0.73. The dollars will cancel dollars. 0.73 times 100 gives us 73. We attach the percentage sign. Therefore, the woman will receive 73% of the amount she invested. We move now to question 3. Question 3 goes, the general manager of an oil company receives a monthly salary of 2,800,000 francs CFA. He has tax-free allowance of 280,000 francs CFA. Find the annual tax he pays if the rates are 30% on the first 840,000 francs CFA, 40% on the next 224,000 francs CFA, 50% on the next 840,000 francs CFA, and lastly 60% on the remaining amount. We have to calculate the annual tax he pays. We have the monthly salary of the manager to be equal to 2,800,000 francs CFA. The annual salary of the manager will simply be equal to, in a year there are 12 months, 12 times his monthly salary, which is 2,800,000 francs CFA. And this will simply be equal to 33,600,000 francs CFA. This is the amount the manager receives in a year as salary. Next, we need to find the annual tax-free allowance the manager has. Monthly, first we have the monthly tax-free allowance. That is the amount of the salary of the manager which is not taxable is 280,000 francs CFA. In a year, the annual tax-free allowance of the manager will simply be equal to 12 times 280,000 francs CFA, and this will simply be equal to 3,360,000 francs CFA. Now we need to calculate the amount being taxed annually. Amount taxed annually, that is the amount the manager pays taxes. It will simply be equal to the annual salary of the manager, which is 33,600,000 francs CFA, minus the annual tax-free allowance, which is 3,360,000 francs CFA. And this will simply be equal to 30,240,000 francs CFA. So this is the amount of the manager's annual salary which is taxed. Now we need to proceed by calculating the taxes paid by the manager. For the first one, we have been told that the manager pays 30% of 840,000 francs CFA. Tax 1 is simply equal to 30% of 840,000 francs CFA. And this will simply be equal to, expressing 30% as a fraction, it gives us 30 over 100 times 840,000 francs CFA all over 1. 2 zeros here will strike off 2 zeros at the denominator. We will simply be left with 30 times 8,400, and this will simply be equal to 252,000 francs CFA. This will be the amount the manager pays as tax for the first 840,000 francs CFA. Now let's calculate tax 2, which is the tax paid on the second amount, that is 224,000 francs CFA. It is simply equal to 40% of 224,000 francs CFA. It gives us 40 over 100 times 224,000 francs CFA all over 1. These 2 zeros at the denominator here will strike off 2 zeros at the numerator. We will simply be left with 40 times 2,240, which is simply equal to 89,600 francs CFA. Now we have to calculate tax 3, which is the tax paid on 840,000 francs CFA. That is the third amount, 840,000 francs CFA, which is simply equal to 50% of 840,000 francs CFA. This is simply equal to expressing 50% as a fraction, gives us 50 all over 100 times 840,000 francs CFA all over 1. Performing all necessary simplifications, these two zeros will strike off two zeros. We'll be left with 50 times 8,400 francs CFA, which is simply equal to 420,000 francs CFA. So this is the amount paid as tax on the third amount, which is 840,000 francs CFA. Now we need to calculate the tax 4, which is the tax paid on the remaining amount. We need the remaining amount. The remaining amount is simply equal to, we are going to take the annual amount which is being taxed, that is 30,240,000 francs CFA minus the sum of the first three amounts, which are levied, tax 1, tax 2, and tax 3. We have 840,000 francs CFA plus 224,000 francs CFA plus 840,000 francs CFA. And this will simply be equal to 30,240,000 francs CFA minus the sum of these three amounts gives us 1,904,000 francs CFA. Performing the subtraction, 30,240,000 francs CFA minus 1,904,000 francs CFA, it gives us 28,336,000 francs CFA. So this is the remaining amount. Now we can calculate tax 4. Tax 4 is simply equal to 60% of the remaining amount, and the remaining amount is 28,336,000 francs CFA. This is simply equal to expressing 60% as a fraction. It gives us 60 over 100 times 28,336,000 francs CFA all over 1. The two zeros at the denominator will strike off two zeros at the numerator. We will simply be left with 60 times 283,360, which is simply equal to 17,001,600 francs CFA. So this is the amount the manager pays as tax on the remaining amount, which is 28,336,000 francs CFA. Now, for us to calculate the tax paid annually by the manager, it will simply be equal to, we are going to add all the taxes, that is tax 1 plus tax 2 plus tax 3 plus tax 4, and this will simply be equal to the first tax he pays 252,000 francs CFA, plus tax 2 he pays 89,600 francs CFA, plus tax 3 he pays 420,000 francs CFA, plus tax 4 he pays 17,001,600 francs CFA. Summing all the taxes, we are going to obtain an amount of 17,763,200 francs CFA. This is the amount the manager pays as tax annually. Now let's conclude. Therefore, the manager pays an annual tax. When you talk of annual tax, that means a yearly tax of 17,763,200 francs CFA. We underline the answer. We are done with the exercises for application on taxes. If in case you have any worries, feel free to leave your questions at the comment section. Please, if you like the video, share and subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.